to 40 feet away from that TV. They can't hear accurately by any means what that teacher is saying or what's on that TV set. Those two things seem obvious until you get to this next graphic. I wrote an article several years ago where I looked at grades from the students and found that where the student sits reduced their grade. They got a lower grade by where they happen to sit in the classroom. Nothing is more inappropriate to equity and quality of learning than to have a student be able to choose by accident or choice a bad seat in the house. They shouldn't have that situation occur. It would be like having them pick a book off the shelf and randomly they get every other page is torn out. That's not the way we need to do education, and we can't have our facilities do that. We need our buildings to be random and equitable in every way. So looking at some of these options, we see a triple screen multimedia from the Brookfield Zoo model. And then the lower right, you see a connection to technology education class. So let's go to how this works. In this example, we can connect that science lab to the Moat Museum, which is what the Brookfield Zoo does with the Moat Museum in Sarasota, Florida. But you also have the largest and only, if I recall, from Visit 1, marine biology program in the state of Missouri. So again, coming up the ladder saying, let's put that creativity at the top of our pyramid. By properly planning these science labs, we can do the same type of educational visions that are being done elsewhere in the country effectively to connect to these kinds of potential business partnerships and institutions. So let's talk about business partnerships to close. Over the years, I've had a great opportunity to work with some pretty great educators like here and some good corporations too, like NASA, Disney, Brookfield Zoo, SeaWorld, and some universities. Creating business partnerships is an incredible way to transition students to what are the job expectations of a new and challenging world, be exposed to careers that they may choose to engage themselves. So these are marvelous corporations. But look what you've got right here in your own backyard. What is this? It's called the Health Medicine Corridor. What was that again? Pardon me? Animal Health Corridor. See, I apologize. But I also know, looking at all these letters, I tried to learn all the names, but I feel like I'm doing alphabet soup. So we've got BIVI, Alltech, Healthland Health, Nestle's, Purina, and then the rest of them. But you have incredible opportunities right here within, 25 miles in some of the best technologies available, best opportunities for business partnerships. But did you know, raise your hand, that the school district already has partnerships with over 100 of these businesses? 100. So I'm talking about things, and you might be saying, yeah, that sounds great. I don't know if we can do that. You've already doing it. And the question is, can we do it better through proper facility planning and facility design? I'm closing with a final out-of-the-box idea. It's what I call the learning atrium. I created this quite a few years ago, having visited a museum in Vancouver, British Columbia. And the Pacific Science Center engages a perimeter of educational spaces around a core of flexible theater-like space, which I refer to as an atrium. Let's look at what could be around such a space. It doesn't need to look like this, but it could. You could have science and technology coordinating on the north end. To the right, you see a cluster of general classrooms with a business class with a resource space in the middle. On the bottom, you could have a business classes or business partnerships or a corporate learning center where a business actually moves onto the campus, rents space, and helps educate the student population. When fully outfitted, the interior space could be a place where robotics or automobiles are brought in to demonstrate a new technology and coordinate with the curriculum that's being taught in the classrooms. The yellow buses are there to the far right because in rural areas, such a solution is very appropriate to bring middle school and even elementary students to the atrium during the summer or just to better understand and integrate the K-12 educational framework. So I think these are some incredible new trends. We're thinking about them, but we're not making decisions. We have to price them to see if they're affordable and right, and then we're going to move into the master plan. So I really think we're at this incredible final phase of making the whole system's transition from that caterpillar I started with to becoming a butterfly. And thank you for my, I think, probably final presentation this time. Sam, yours.
Thank you, Frank. Good evening. Why are we talking about educational trends? Well, we're in the process of developing a master plan. And for the development of a master plan, we want to begin with the end in mind. After all, if we don't know where we're going, any road will get us there. So we start by reviewing existing best practices and educational trends and determining which of them make sense for the future of the St. Joseph School District. That's what we'll do tonight. A process will start tonight. Frank has reviewed the educational issues at the core of the development of educational trends. And you'll note that the trends are listed in your packets just before this evening's exercise. My job is to describe the educational facility responses. Next slide, please. You'll note that I mention a number of these educational trends in my presentation. They're not all inclusive. There are some things that are probably in addition to the things that I'll illustrate. Our purpose tonight, however, is to obtain feedback from this group to identify those things that seem to hold the greatest promise for the future of the St. Joseph School District. Where do educational trends come from, you might ask? Next slide, please. Trends evolve in response to the big issues facing school districts. Today, the two big issues facing school districts are student achievement and operational costs. We've known for a long time that students learn in different ways, in a variety of settings, using a variety of activities, and that our current sort of one-size-fits-all academic environment isn't the best environment for student achievement. But we have, across the country, we've had a hard time really changing that. But some things have changed recently that are forcing us to take a more critical look at our facilities. One of those things is No Child Left Behind. Before No Child Left Behind, teaching was mandatory. Learning was optional. After No Child Left Behind, learning is mandatory. So school districts have to squeeze every bit of benefit out of their scarce dollars. So it's these issues, the big issues that are pressing on school districts that become the fountainhead for educational trends. Next slide, please. Now we're talking about effectively educating students. So why are we talking about buildings? Because after all, everybody knows that a great teacher can teach in a barn, and that it's teachers and the curriculum that are the really only important variable. And while, fair enough, they are an enormous variable, they are not the only variable in effective student education. Let me give you a common sense example. If you were to take that great teacher and his or her students in a barn, or in a 1920s era classroom with all of its electrical capacity, and you were to have that teacher teach keyboarding without the use of keyboards because the electrical capacity won't support it, simply through reading about it, and then take that same teacher and put he or her in a classroom that allows keyboarding, learning by doing, who will do a better job absorbing the content? I think the answer is obvious. However, maybe you'd like a more detailed look. There are a number of studies that correlate or that document a correlation between building condition and student achievement. I've listed 3 here. No, if you'll go back to that last slide. And in microscopic text on your handout are the links to these 3 studies. They're great studies. One's called Greening of America's Schools. It's about cost and benefits. The other one is about do academic facilities affect academic outcome? Building a condition affect academic outcome. And the last one was one that I've just discovered recently. And it really measures the impact, the student performance, pre-Reconstruction and post-Reconstruction. Now the next slide. What you may or may not be able to see